A release that was years in the making, literally. Solus 4.0, it's finally out. Today I'm going to take a look at Solus 4.0, codenamed Fortitude. I'm going to take a look at the Budgie edition. Let's get started. So we have been waiting for Solus 4.0 to come out for like a year and a half. It has been a long time coming for the next major release of Solus, which is now Solus 4.0 Fortitude. So we got Solus 3.9, then 3.99, then 3.999, and then 3.9999999. And now finally Solus 4.0. I can't wait to take a look at it. Today I'm going to take a look at their flagship edition, which of course is the Budgie edition, but they also offer a GNOME version of Solus 4.0 and a KDE Plasma edition and a Mate edition, I believe. Let's go ahead and take a look at the release announcements here. So this is Solus 4.0 Fortitude. It was released just a couple of days ago, actually yesterday, March 17th. Today is March 18th that I'm recording this. In general, some new versions of applications in 4.0 will be Firefox. Firefox will be on version 65.0.1, LibreOffice will be 6.2.1.2, Rhythmbox 3.4.3, and Thunderbird 60.5.2. 4.20.16, that's a very recent kernel. The deal with the kernel, of course, is because it's such a recent kernel, those of you that live on the bleeding edge as far as some of the hardware choices you make, if you bought some of the latest and greatest hardware that just came out, having this very recent kernel should help you, especially things like, the latest and greatest video cards. Other things, they worked on the Software Center, of course, major improvements to the Budgie desktop environment, major improvements to the menu and certain applets like the caffeine mode applet. Also, the taskbar now has an icon task list that looks very clean. The Raven menu has had some improvements. All right, and the sound menu. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and run through the installation and take a look at Solus 4.0 Budgie inside VirtualBox. Alright, so I downloaded the ISO for Solus Budgie. The ISO size is 1.4 gigs in size, so not a terribly large ISO. I like that, so I don't think Solus Budgie 4.0 can be considered bloated. Anyway, I went ahead and created a virtual machine. I gave this VM 2 cores of my 6-core CPU. I gave this VM 4 gigs of RAM, and I'm going to run through the installation. So, alright, so the installer here, we're going to choose English for the language. I'm going to run through this pretty quickly. Find my location automatically. Do I really need to tick that on? Why not? I trust them. Yeah, they found my time zone. They found English US for my keyboard layout. Okay. Yep, we're good with all that, so yeah, I don't mind giving them a little bit of location information. I gave this machine, this VM, this virtual machine, a 16 gigabyte virtual hard drive. So do we want to automatically partition the drive, or do I want to manually partition the drive myself? I'll let Solus do its automatic partitioning, so I'm just going to click Next. Do I want to do LVM? No, I don't. I won't bother with that in a VM. Do I want to install a bootloader? Yes, this is necessary if I actually want this to boot up after I'm done. The only time you really wouldn't want to fool with a bootloader would be if you already had one installed. If you were multi-booting, dual booting, and you already had a bootloader already installed on that drive. Otherwise, if this is the only OS, yes, you need a bootloader. Alright, so who will use this device? So I need to create a username. I'm going to call my user DT. My real name is DT. Now I need to create a strong and complicated password for privacy reasons. Alright, and this user should have administrative capabilities, so the DT user will have sudo privileges. I definitely want that. Alright, why is it not allowing me to move on? It is possible that the installer doesn't like my super strong and complicated password, but if that's the case, I wish it would actually give me an error message if that's the case. But let me create a longer password. See what I want to go with here. Usually I use the same strong and complicated password for all my VMs, but I've got to switch it up. And yes, now I have the option of add now, so now I can actually create this user. Yeah, that's unfortunate that it will not give me the username and password that I wanted. And if my password is not complicated enough or it's too short, you should give some kind of error message. Otherwise, how would a user know what the problem is on that screen? It confused the hell out of me. So the Solus devs really should fix that. All right, review options before installation. Language and region look good. Partition looks good. Created a user. We're installing the bootloader, so I'm going to go ahead and click install. All right, it's about to format the drive and write to the disk. All right, now this portion of the install on most Linux distributions, modern distributions, usually once I get to this part of the install, it takes about 10 minutes. I'm going to pause the recording. All right, and that portion of the installer has completed. It took, I don't know, maybe 8 or 10 minutes. Now we need to reboot the machine to finish installation. That's what I'm going to do right now. And I have rebooted my freshly installed Solus 4.0 Budgie. And let's see how long it takes for boot up time. And boot up time was very fast. Got to a login manager, I don't know, 10 seconds or less probably. Let me type my really super secure and complicated password for this VM. I do notice that we don't have any kind of VirtualBox guest editions already working, so I may have to adjust the screen resolution here before I do anything else. Let me go ahead and take the time to adjust the screen resolution. So I'm going to use XR and R. So in the terminal, open up a terminal, type XR and R, and you will get a listing of all the available screen resolutions. Then type XR and R -S, and then whatever resolution you want to set this to. For my monitor, probably the best one to go with of what is available, I'm going to go 1680 by 1050. Hit enter, and there we go. We've got a little bit better screen resolution now. Alright, so this is Solus 4.0 Fortitude, the Budgie edition. Let's go ahead and take a look at what is installed by default. Again, the ISO was only 1.4 gigs in size, so there shouldn't be like a ton of stuff. It shouldn't have like the kitchen sink installed. So there is an accessories category. We have a calculator, we have files, and we have gedit, which is our plain text editor from GNOME. Files, I'm assuming... Yep, wow, I really like the new theme. Well, look at the client-side decorations and everything for the file manager here. Is this Nautilus, GNOME's file manager? Yes, it is. So files is kind of the generic name, but the actual name of this program is Nautilus 3.26.4. Wow, I'm just blown away by how great the file manager looks. That is a sharp-looking file manager. I know appearances don't mean that much, but first impressions do mean something, and this is a gorgeous desktop. I'm a really big fan of dark themes, and most dark themes are usually not really that close to being black. Usually they're much more gray or silvery. They really don't ever make dark themes quite as dark as what Solus has done here with this Budgie theme. This is a very, very dark, almost black theme, and I love it. Alright, we have a graphics category where we have really nothing here. LibreOffice Draw and Photos. This is another GNOME app here. Take a look at Photos here. Of course, I've got no photos here on this VM that was just created. This is Photos 3.28. Close that out. Also, we have an Internet category. Firefox 65 is the default web browser. HexChat is also here for those that want to play around with IRC chat. So we could connect to, the Solus IRC support channel over on the Freenode network if I needed to get support or whatever. I normally don't use HexChat for an IRC client. I typically use terminal-based IRC clients like IRC or WeChat. Let me actually try to use HexChat here on camera. I'm going to connect to the Freenode network. The Freenode network is where most free and open source projects host their IRC chat channels. I'm sure that's probably where you'd find a Solus support channel. You will also find the DistroTube channel over on the Freenode network. So if I type /join and then #DistroTube, yeah, and this is the DistroTube channel here. Let's see if I can make this window a little bigger. That's a shameless plug there for the DistroTube IRC chat. Let me close out Hex Chat. Yeah. And by the way, just closing it doesn't actually close it. It looks like it actually put it in the sys tray. Well, there it goes. It went away. Alright, also under Internet, we have Mozilla Thunderbird for those of you that want a desktop email client. And we have Transmission for a BitTorrent client. Transmission is GNOME's BitTorrent client. It's a fine program. What I use to basically torrent any Linux ISOs or anything I want to share. Alright, also we have an Office category. For Office we have LibreOffice, not the entire suite of LibreOffice products, but we do have Calc, Impress, and Writer. And again, this was one of the very most recent versions of LibreOffice. Let's take a look at this. I want to say it's version 6.2. So this is LibreOffice Writer. It's taking a few seconds to load up. That's not unusual. LibreOffice is kind of slow sometimes to load up. Especially here, I'm running it in a VM. I'm not actually running this, on physical hardware. So yes, this is version 6.2.1.2. Yeah, LibreOffice is great. It's our free and open source alternative to something like Microsoft Office. We have a sound and video category, and we have GNOME MPV for our video player. Pretty standard video player. And of course we did have an audio player too, so Rhythmbox is the music player. Rhythmbox is one of the GNOME applications, and it is fantastic. You're looking for a really good audio multimedia player. Rhythmbox is one of the best ones we have. Alright, we also have categories for system settings. This is your usual stuff, system settings for things like background, Bluetooth date, hardware, drivers, keyboard, mouse, network, etc., etc. We may take a look at some of those later. System tools, we have a category for system tools. This is our terminal, the settings manager, the gparted partition editor is here. That is interesting that gparted is actually on Solus after it is installed. I understand why gparted is here when you're doing a live image, but usually after you install something, they usually delete gparted from your installation, because unless you really know what you're doing, you probably don't want to be playing around in a partition editor like gparted. We have a category called Universal Access, and this is our onboard, basically our onboard keyboard. Then we have a utilities category, and this is where we would find our archive manager for zip, unzip, that sort of thing. Our disk usage analyzer, GNOME disk is here. The document viewer for viewing PDFs. We have a help, image viewer, password and keys, a screenshot utility, and of course a system monitor. Let's take a look at the system monitor here. It looks like they're using the GNOME system monitor. Let's make sure of that. Yes, GNOME system monitor. So this is 3.28.2 is the version. And what kind of system resources are we using? So if we let it settle down here for a second, CPU usage is where you would expect it, single-digit percentages. I'm not really doing much though, so I wouldn't expect it to be really using any CPU. RAM usage is actually pretty good considering, again, I'm in a VM. I gave this VM 4 gigs of RAM. We are only using 641 megs of RAM at the moment. Again, I'm not doing much, but that's pretty good by today's standards with modern desktop environments, often pushing over a gig cold boot. 641 megs is really good. So let's take a look at the Budgie desktop settings, because this is what I'm kind of interested in, is what's going on with Budgie here. So we have our themes. So it looks like we have some new widget themes, Plata, various versions of a Plata theme. I think the default one is Plata Noir. It's this really dark theme. The icon set is Papyrus. I like the Papyrus set. I probably wouldn't change the default theme or the default icon set. I think it's gorgeous. I think this is, just well put together. If you wanted to change the theme, though, they do have a little slider here, dark theme. Of course, it's slid to the on position. You could slide it off, and I'm assuming it maybe would change to a light theme. I don't know. Nothing changed, though. I'm not exactly sure what that was supposed to do. Animations, control weather windows, and control... Yeah, I'll keep the animations on. But yeah, this slider really didn't do anything. If I wanted to change the theme, though, Would just switching that do anything? Really? Yeah. So that changed the theme. So that changed it from Plata Noir to just regular Plata. So that's, you know, more of your typical kind of theme with a dark header and then the light main frame of the windows. That actually looks pretty classy too. I don't mind that, but I think I'll go back to the default. Alright, in desktop settings, this is where we can determine whether we want to have desktop icons or not. I don't personally care for desktop icons, so I would leave that turned off. But if I wanted to, I could, you know, switch some of these on and start having, you know, stuff on the desktop here, like my trash icon, mounted volumes, and all of that. Me personally, I would usually just keep all this ticked off. I don't want my desktop cluttered with anything. We could play with the fonts. I'm not going to do that. The Raven menu, nothing really of interest here except for the bottom one, show power strip. I think, yeah, normally this Raven menu has the power session buttons at the bottom. I think if I tick that on and go back, yeah, now we have the session log out and log. Well, you guys can't see that because I'm in the way. Let me hide myself. So by default, this is ticked off. So let me tick that off. The Raven menu without the power strip and with the power strip, you see the buttons. Very cool. So you do have some things you can do. Enable display of week numbers and calendar. So if I tick that on, it'll tell me what week of the year is going on. So if it's like the 20th week of the year, I guess it'll show that. Allow raising volume above 100%. Now this is actually really interesting. I'm glad they added this feature. With audio settings, usually, so especially with output, sometimes you want to output volume at a percentage higher than 100%. Sometimes you want to go 125% or even 150% in certain situations. And now Budgie allows you to do that where it did not allow you to do that before. We have notifications here in the Raven menu, and we have applets here. The applets, of course, are the calendar here, the volume here, and now you see the volume. That line right there, that's 100%, but if I wanted to, I could take it to 150. I'll put it back to 100 for now. We do have devices here, so I could click devices, and we do have some audio input, audio output stuff here, even in the VM. If this was actually on my physical hardware, you'd probably see it picking up things like my Scarlett 2i2 interface and, you know, microphones and cameras and everything else. Let me close out the Raven menu and close out the settings manager here. You guys know when I do these first look install and reviews, basically, one of the things I always love to take a look at are the backgrounds, the wallpapers. So I'm going to change background here, and they are using the standard background switcher that GNOME uses here. Anyway, so I'm going to go to change background and take a look at some of the wallpapers. Now Solus, I got to give these guys credit when it comes to theming and artwork. Everything from the icon set to the GTK theme to the wallpapers, they are really, really polished and professional. These wallpapers are gorgeous. Most of them look like they are from previous versions of Solus. I've seen a lot of these. I've seen the branded ones there that have Solus in the name. I've seen all of those, and I've seen a few of the nature ones before. I know for sure this is one I've used in the past. I love this particular wallpaper here. Let me minimize that. Yeah, really, really nice wallpapers. The default one that was on looked good. Let's see what this is. It's an interesting wallpaper here. Ah, kind of cool. It's like a satellite photo. It looks like a desert and a river running through it. That's really nice. If you like minimal wallpapers, and I'm kind of a minimalist when it comes to my wallpapers. I don't want wallpapers that are really busy. That's actually really nice. Since we have a dark theme, we probably want a light wallpaper to contrast our dark theme. Let's see, they don't really have anything that's terribly light. Maybe this one right here. Probably is going to be the one that contrasts our dark theme the best. Yeah, I like that. That's pretty sharp. I could dig that. Open up the file manager. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Yeah. And down here we have our sys tray. We have our time and date, which we could get the calendar. We wanted to launch the calendar. Wow, the calendar launches full screen by default. That's interesting. Let me minimize that. Really nice looking calendar. Is this the GNOME? Yeah, calendar 3.28.2. And we have our power session buttons, volume, of course. I have a notification bell here. No notifications right now. And then, of course, our network connection. I think I will leave that as a very short first look at Solus 4.0 Fortitude, the Budgie edition. Overall, what are my initial thoughts of Solus 4.0? Love it. Love it. Just everything about this. It took a long time for us to finally get this release, and it is gorgeous. It is well put together, professional. You would think that a major corporation, like a Canonical or a Red Hat or a SUSE, were behind this distribution. That's how good this thing looks. And I'm sure it's going to run great on physical hardware. I actually ran the last version of Solus on one of my laptops for 2 or 3 months, and the Budgie edition of that particular version, and loved it. Had absolutely zero problems with it. The only thing that would keep somebody like me from running Solus is software availability. The repos. They have pretty good repos. You can find most everything you're looking for in the Solus repos, but at the same time, it's not the Debian repos. It's not the Arch repos. So that's the one downside, but other than that, I love the Budgie desktop environment. If I was going to run a full desktop environment, Budgie just looks great. It's everything that GNOME should have been, GNOME 3. This is like GNOME 3 done right, is what the Budgie desktop is. Me personally, I think what I'm going to do, I've got a couple of laptops, that I like to distro hop around on. Of course, I also have an IC dock in my main production machine. I don't like running the Budgie desktop environment on my main production machine, my triple monitor system here. But Budgie is perfect for a laptop. I had the last version of Solus Budgie on one of my laptops for about 3 months. Loved it. So I think I'm going to put Solus 4.0 either on my Lenovo ThinkPad or my Toshiba Satellite, and give it a go for a little while, see how I get along with it. Before I go, this show was made possible by Ansem, Carlos, Chris, Douglas, Dylan, Leo, Rob, Robert, and Tony. They are the producers of the show. Without them, this show would not be possible. Also brought to you by all those fine ladies and gentlemen. You guys see all those names on the screen that help support my work over on Patreon. If you'd like to support my channel, please do so. Consider supporting me. You'll find me at DistroTube over on Patreon. All right, guys. Peace.